Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Tomorrow, India will witness the seventh and final phase of the ongoing Lok Sabha polls, the results for which will be declared on the 4th or 5th of June. Now, as we draw closer to this date, today on the podcast, we are taking a break from our usual programming to share a conversation that we recently had with Vandita Mishra, Indian Express's national opinion editor. Throughout these elections, Vandita travelled across 5 crucial states: Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, and West Bengal. In this discussion with her, we talk about the concerns of voters in these states, the reasons behind many choosing to vote for the ruling party, the current state of the opposition, and the biggest factors that will determine the outcome of these polls. So Vandita, begin by telling us, as someone who has reported on many elections in the past, what would you say makes this election different from the ones we've seen in the past?
So we have a 2-term incumbent, which is looking for a 3rd term, which itself is, unusual. We have the opposition, which has reached its lowest ebb in the last 2 elections, which is now coming together, has put together an anti-BJP front, a joint front. So the jointness of that front is on test, and the appeal or, ebb of the appeal of the BJP is on test. So it's an important election because we have also seen in the last 2 elections, 2014 and 2019, a certain kind of polarization that has become part of our politics now. So it is an election where there are 2 worldviews, even if they may not always be very clearly articulated. But it is an election that is being fought very intensely by 2 ways of thinking about the country and about its politics.
And when we talk about these ways of thinking, tell us how the voters you spoke to in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and Bengal, how did they articulate this, and what were some of the biggest concerns on their mind?
So it's not always the polarization that is on view when you talk to the voter. There are concerns which straddle all views, all sections of voters across the states. There are 2 primarily that of such shared concerns. One is mehengai, price rise, and the other is unemployment or berozgari. But the point is that there are, in any election, and especially in this one, because the BJP is a party with a multi-layered appeal. So at any given point, there is a constellation of appeals or factors, and whether it is mehengai or it is berozgari, you also have to, if it is not enough to say that they are there, of course they are there. What you have to then look at is, do they become electorally decisive? And in that, the further question is, in different settings, in different places, are other factors either neutralizing these 2 factors or countering them or overriding them or superseding them or not? That is the question to my mind.
And Vandita, in that sense, one big concern that has emerged in this election from the Ab Ki Baar 400 Par slogan is that the BJP wants to change the constitution. Several opposition parties have said this outright. And because of that, many from the backward castes and the oppressed communities, they fear that reservations might be taken away. When you spoke to people from these communities, especially the Dalit community, what did they have to tell you about these concerns and what they're thinking about?
It's definitely there, this fear, this apprehension that, the BJP's 400 Par may well have been a rallying cry to their own cadres. It may well have been, like as PM Modi has said in many places publicly, that when your child does well and comes with 80% marks, you're not going to say, oh, that's okay, that's enough. Next time, get me 80% and that's fine.
At least not Indian parents.
That's very true. You will say, go beyond, get me more. So he has tried to explain the 400 Par slogan in this manner. And it may well be true that the BJP did that. It was a rallying cry to its cadres to fight harder, But it is very true that it has sparked anxieties, particularly among the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. And if you get down to it, the anxiety is basically centering around the question of reservation, arakshan. So the fear is that if the BJP comes for another term, if it gets big numbers, it will change the constitution in a way that will disadvantage those who are right now receiving protections from the constitution. So it's the weaker sections. So you will hear this fear expressed in Dalit localities, in scheduled tribe areas, and also in some Muslim localities. And also in Bihar, for instance, I heard, even among the OBCs, the backward groups. But it is mostly a concern for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes.
And so did you also find this to be the case in the tribal belts of Gujarat?
Yes, I did. There are people mobilizing. There are activists and campaigners who are also mobilizing around this issue. In fact, they are even talking of the violence in Manipur because there are a lot of Christian tribals, in Gujarat as well. But again, it has been my experience that when I go to a scheduled caste locality or a scheduled tribe area, there will be people who will talk about this. But equally, there will be people who will shoot down the worry, who will say, we are not worried because we trust Modi to do the right thing, that even if he gets the numbers and even if he changes the constitution, it is not going to be in a way that hurts us. So I'm saying it is not that you are getting only one voice of that one fear. There are different voices even around this issue.
And Vandita, when talking about concerns and things that people are angry about, farmer distress, that's been an issue for a long time. One farmer you spoke to in Maharashtra, he said that the danger for the farmer is not just Asmani, it is also Sultani. So talk about the things that farmers in the Maharashtra region told you.
So you had a crash in prices, and this has been a very difficult time for the farmers. And they blame not just, again, the weather, but also the government that only thinks of protecting consumers and does not keep the producers at the center of its policy. So the farmer is helpless on both counts because of the weather, which he cannot control, and also because of a government that does not keep him in its view. So there is definitely farmer distress. But except in the Maratha farmers, where there was a very articulate anti-BJP sentiment, again, I did not think that this could become something that would, in one voice, go against the BJP.
But talking about Maharashtra, we know, of course, that the state has seen a lot of political upheaval recently. The Shiv Sena has split into two, and so has the NCP, with the help of the BJP, of course. Talk about how these dynamics are playing out and what these two splits have done.
So the message it has sent out is that here is this powerful alliance, and on the other side, they are not able to hold their own. So what the opposition is hoping for in Maharashtra is that there would be a sympathy vote because, the Uddhav Thackeray has, because of his party split, most of his MLAs have gone to the other side. And similarly, that there would be a sympathy vote for Sharad Pawar. And also what they are hoping is that the people can see that the split of these two opposition parties has happened not on its own, but because the BJP the government used ED, CBI, income tax to put pressure on MLAs and leaders through fear and favor. It could be that this works for the opposition, the sympathy, but what is coming in the way of the sympathy vote is the fact that neither Sharad Pawar nor Uddhav Thackeray are actually very great victims. They are people who are seen as players of the game, who have done a lot of cynical politics by themselves. And in the case of Uddhav Thackeray, he had shifted from the BJP to the other side before his party split. And so many people will also say that, but he spent a lifetime in the saffron camp. And then why did he shift to the Congress? And it was only because, maybe his son wasn't made chief minister or because of some private interest. And so why should we be so sympathetic to him if his party splits?
Right. And I guess it's difficult to see Sharad Pawar, one of the tallest opposition leaders, as a victim.
Yeah, so I don't think they play victim very well.
And in that sense, the other prominent opposition leader who the central agencies have been after is Arvind Kejriwal. So how would you compare their sort of victimhood to what Kejriwal is presenting?
So, I did keep the Kejriwal question with me through this trip. And I did try and ask voters across these 5 states on what they made of the fact that a sitting chief minister was arrested just on the eve of the election. And I must say that there were many, many people who did express discomfort with this. And among young voters, there were many who said that something about this is wrong. Many said that there is a problem with the timing of the arrest. Even those who said, we don't know, he may have done something wrong, but they said the timing is suspicious. Why would you arrest somebody just before an election? So there are many responses, I would say, that I got on the Kejriwal question. It is not as if all people I spoke to expressed discomfort with his arrest, because there were many who also said, but, he may have done something wrong. Okay, there's another response, which is that, yes, I do believe this is wrong. And these are people who would say that there is the misuse of ED, CBI, and this is an example of that. But they could also then say, but, I believe Modi is wrong here and his government is wrong here. But look, there are other things that he's doing right. Or actually one more response, and that is that they will say, yes, he's doing wrong to his political opponents, but he's not doing wrong to us. So they make a distinction between what the BJP does to its political opponents and what it does to, or how it addresses the people. The perception is that there is this vindictive, powerful BJP, which will try and decimate the opposition. But then there is another BJP. Before we get carried away that there is only this malign force, there is another BJP which the people see as a party that has delivered inside people's homes. So it has given you free rations, it has given you toilets, it has given you Awas. You may have given a cut to the Sarpanch from the Awas money, but you still got to make your house. And then at one end, it is reaching inside your house to give you these goods and services. It has opened an account for you. On the other, it's also a BJP that exhorts you to look beyond yourself in a way and say that, you may be still suffering a bit, but look, the country, the Desh is becoming more confident on the world stage.
Right. This is something that a lot of voters talk about, that there is a sense that India is doing better. Even though they might not be able to see their immediate reality change, there is a sense that now internationally people are talking about India. Could you talk about this point a bit more?
So this is a very important factor in the BJP's appeal or pitch, that we have made India a bigger player on the world stage. That, or what Modi has actually said in his recent interview, I think to India TV, but this is something that I have heard many voters say, when you travel, that earlier prime ministers would go abroad and nobody knew, which is, it's fiction, but it's fiction that has been packaged and sold very well. So I think it's not foreign policy as policy, it is foreign policy as photo op. It's foreign policy as selfie, which has become very, very, you see it, you meet it almost in every group of voters.
Right. And one of the rumors that was spread in this regard, which was completely false, was that PM Modi stopped the Russia-Ukraine war to get Indians back home.
Yeah. So I still remember I had traveled, not in this election, but after Manish Sisodia's arrest, I had just traveled to different parts of Delhi and spent some time talking to voters, like in a slum, in a mall, in a park, in a middle-class colony. And I remember talking to a woman in a slum area where, she spoke a lot about how earlier India was a recipient of aid. And now, whether it was during COVID and with vaccines, India was the giver of aid. Now, this message, it has been packaged, it has been sold very well. It has become commonplace to hear this India in the world positioning. So I'm not saying that it is all true or all false. It is a mix of both. It is also true that the Modi government's foreign policy has won it brownie points in also more informed quarters. But it's a mix of fiction and reality, and it has been sold and packaged very well.
Okay, so we have talked about things that people are worried about, things that people are angry about, and things people say are working for them. But now let's talk about the state of the opposition. You began by talking how this time we saw all these opposition parties coming together to form the India bloc. Now, although later we saw some parties not joining in, like the TMC, but talk about how this coming together of this alliance featured on the ground.
So I did not see the India bloc functioning coherently on the ground in any of the states that I visited. I visited 5 states. So one is simply, if you count the number of joint rallies that the India bloc has had, you would probably come up with 3 or maybe 4. I don't think it goes beyond that number. Other thing is that everywhere that I went, now, for instance, in Bihar, where there was a question mark against in the battle, because it has been recently, again, the political field has been unsettled. Nitish has moved back to the NDA, and that has been a major disruptive force. But because with Nitish moving back to the NDA, there is actually a very large opposition space that has been vacated, which, is there for the India Alliance to occupy. I did not see that happening simply for one reason. Tejasvi is doing a solo campaign in Bihar. He is, going everywhere on his helicopter. To my mind, that the message, the India message, would have been sent out much more effectively to the voter if with Tejasvi, he would carry, in the passenger seat, some India leader or the other, or more than one each time, simply to give an answer to that voter on the ground or that fence sitter who says that, yes, I have discontents and anxieties about the way the country is going. I'm not a fan of this government, but who's on the other side? So now, at the moment, what Tejasvi's campaign is telling that voter is that I am there, but that voter is then going to say, but you are a regional leader and you are not going to be prime minister. So who am I voting for at the center? I will look at you when the Vidhan Sabha election comes next year. I will look at you favorably, maybe. But right now, I'm asking who is on the other side of Modi?
So in Bihar, it's Tejasvi versus Modi, which is not much of a competition at all.
Absolutely. It's an uneven contest. It is an unequal contest. But it was the India Alliance's job to say, it is not just Tejasvi. When you vote for Tejasvi in Bihar, you're actually voting for us. And that us has to be showcased, that us has to be framed together, and that message has to be drilled home to the voter, visually and otherwise. I don't think the India Alliance made that effort. And in any of the states that I visited, I did not see. So one is that it thinks that the voters will do its work for it, that the voters are so sick of the BJP, or so the anti-incumbency has risen to an extent that they don't need to really work for the vote, and that it'll fall in their lap on its own. That's one. And the other is that I think they were so preoccupied with their internal jostling and negotiating and give and take that at some point they lost sight of the fact that they were also a people-facing alliance, and that they had to also be on show and be careful about the message and signal that they were sending to the voter. So I think there has been a problem on both these counts. But again, if they are right on the first count, which is that, the people are ready to defeat the BJP, then they could still benefit from that.
Also, when talking about the opposition, we have to talk about Rahul Gandhi. He's the biggest opposition leader right now. Talk about what voters make of him now, especially after his Bharat Jodo Yatra.
So, in previous elections, when one's asked about Rahul Gandhi, many times, in fact, many more times than not, the question was met with a certain kind of a derisive laughter. That is not the case anymore. Many, many voters now will say that, yes, Rahul Gandhi is raising a lot of issues that need to be raised, and especially in terms of jobs. He has been making that a motive of his speeches, and that has gone down well. So I would say that he has shaken off his Pappu tag. Among the Muslims, I will say, even before the yatras, but perhaps more now after the yatras, there is almost an adulation for Rahul Gandhi. But for the rest, outside the Muslim locality, the shaking off of the Pappu tag is perhaps as far as it goes right now. It may be that this is a work in progress, that this is something that he and the Congress can build upon as they go further. I think what is missing right now is that even those who will say that no, he was unfairly labeled by the BJP propaganda machine and that he raises important issues, will then almost always, they will then say that, but he is not yet somebody we see as running the country, and that we don't have confidence or trust in his ability to do so. And that still goes back to the fact, largely, that he has not yet held a responsibility in government so far. Now, that is also a chicken and egg situation because, till he is voted in, he will not be holding that responsibility and that will be held against him. So I would say that he has made a dent with his yatras among the people, and that it is on him to widen that dent into an opening.
And Vandita, when we talk about the state of the opposition, one thing we have seen happen is scores and scores of leaders and workers from the opposition parties joining the BJP, especially in states like Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh. Tell us, what reasons do they give for joining the BJP? I mean, do they just see this as a good career move, that they will have better prospects with the BJP, so why not join it?
That's true. One thing that I am always struck by, but I think more I was struck by in this election than in previous ones, is actually that for all the polarization at the top, on ground level, the lines are so smudged. You have a constant movement of leaders and politicians from one party to the other. That it's a sort of a secular to and fro.
And we see that in Bengal as well.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the reason why they do it, I think, mostly is and used to be this, that if you don't get a ticket in one party, you go to the other one. But what has been added to this reason is actually the ED, CBI campaign. In Maharashtra, this is what I heard most this time, that people, with cases, they are the ones who were or felt intimidated into joining the BJP. And this has been happening in Maharashtra. This is also happening in Gujarat, where, the Aam Aadmi Party, for instance, had 5 MLAs. I think one shifted, but it also had many corporators in Surat, where it had made its first big splash.
Yeah, in 2012, they won 27 seats in the municipal corporation elections in Gujarat, but then 13 of them left and joined the BJP.
So this movement to the BJP is much more pronounced now, what used to be like you could move to any party which gave you a ticket. Now you move to the BJP because you are seeking shelter from the cases that are against you, or that you are simply joining what you see as the more winnable force. So there is this aura of winnability, at least in places like Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh, where the BJP dominance is so entrenched and so large, and the distance between it and the Congress is, for instance, in Madhya Pradesh, there is a 23.5 percentage point margin in 2019. That's the distance that the Congress needs to cover this time. So I think the dominance is so large and many people simply choose the winning side. That's there. But I think the more interesting thing here is that of what it does to the BJP. In the immediate term, it is probably going to enhance its aura of winnability. But in the long term, it is going to have to deal with this. So in Madhya Pradesh and in Gujarat, one does hear of now this new cleavage within the BJP between the BJP old-timers and the newcomers. So in Madhya Pradesh, for instance, they say that wo jo dari bichhane wale or jhanda lehrane wale, those are the original BJP who have worked every day for years and remained true to the BJP, now being overlooked and sometimes, in terms of party posts or tickets in favor of those who have these Johnny-come-latelys from other parties.
Right. In fact, when Indian Express had spoken to some of the BJP leaders who were part of these screenings, they were asked, oh, so 50,000 people from the Congress have joined you. They were like, yeah, but you have no idea the number of people we've rejected.
So the figure that I was given by some senior person in the BJP who didn't want to be named was 60,000 in the last 3 months. 60,000 from Congress and Aam Aadmi Party. So who have joined the BJP in the last 3 months alone.
And unlike these other states, when we look at Bengal, that is where the BJP finds itself in the opposition. It's facing Mamata Banerjee's TMC, which has been in power for over 13 years now. Talk about how strong of a force the BJP is in the state.
So what the BJP has done successfully there is to position itself as the challenger and the party for change. And I would say that what they have managed. So in the last Lok Sabha election, they went from, I think it was 2 or 3 seats to 18. And then in the subsequent assembly election, they went from, again, perhaps I think it was 4 seats to 77. So it's been a very sharp and steep rise in the last Vidhan Sabha election and in the last Lok Sabha election. What it has done is that it has basically made the contest bipolar. Congress has 2 MPs right now, but the left has none. The left has no MP, no MLA. And at the moment, as a result, it's a fight for survival rather than a fight to win in Bengal. It is helped a lot by the fact that Bengal is a partition state. I think in many of our popular narratives and common sense, we look at Punjab as the state that was, scarred and bruised by partition. But so was Bengal. And Bengal still carries a lot of those wounds. And also because of those wounds, a lot of myth-making and spectre-mongering has helped the BJP. Many people who speak in its favor also will say that they will vote for the BJP because they do not want Muslim numbers to increase, or they will say they don't want Muslim infiltration to increase. So these are things that the BJP has again successfully driven home. These are anxieties that it has preyed upon, you could say. Apart from this, what also works in the BJP's favor right now to build itself into a bigger challenger to Mamata Banerjee is the fact that Mamata Banerjee is facing anti-incumbency as well, at least on the jobs front. There is a clear and visible failure. And I think Bengal has a very chronic problem of the young leaving in droves and going out.
Right. And apart from jobs, the TMC is also facing heat because of the Sandesh Khali incident, and which is worrying for the party because it relies a lot on the women voters of the state. But Vandita, earlier you were talking about the Muslim population in Bengal. So can we talk about that section of the population? Because, unlike previous elections, PM Modi this time has very directly named the Muslim community in his speeches. Could you talk about how we see the Muslim vote being spread out this time?
So, for instance, in Bihar, I would say that because of perhaps the kind of campaign that the BJP is running, which is full of communal dog whistles, and it comes from the Prime Minister himself, goes down. I think the result of that seemed to me to be visible in the fact that the Muslim voters that I spoke to in Bihar were all speaking in support of the RJD. So I think there is a consolidation of Muslim support for the RJD in Bihar. In Bengal, except those 2 areas where the Congress is seen to be in the fight, Malda and Murshidabad, other than that, wherever I traveled in Bengal, the Muslim was completely, again, with the TMC. The BJP has always, when you ask them about the kind of campaign that they run or the kind of message that they send out to the minority, their answer always is that they do not discriminate in terms of their government's policy, that the Muslim is also the labharthi, that all these schemes that go to Hindus go to Muslims as well. But I think that is a very, very bare and inadequate answer in a democracy, because in a democracy, the citizen is not just the beneficiary of schemes. The citizen is also right holding. He or she has a right to, have a voice, to be heard, to have representation. And these are things that the BJP government is seen to outrightly deny to the Muslims. And I think this is one area where the BJP has not moved even an inch. I think from 2014 to 2024, while the BJP may have made many innovative policies and come up with more nuanced and layered political appeals, I think on the Muslim question, they remain as nakedly exclusionary as they were in 2014. And that is the test, for a constitutional democracy, whether the rights of the minority are protected and whether space for them is nurtured and expanded or not. And I think on these counts, on this particular count, the BJP government has failed completely. That you send out a message that I do not need your vote, and that when I campaign, I'm going to call it vote jihad, or that I will also say that, the opposition does mujra. These terms, these words, these dog whistles, it's sad that it continues.
Yeah, and we're talking about the minority communities here. But when it comes to the majority, BJP's Hindutva narrative, it does seem to resonate with them.
Yes, to large sections. And this is a larger question, why the majority feels under siege in this country. Now, whether it is just the BJP's campaign that makes it feel that way, or there are larger social, cultural, political reasons, or it is a fact that the opposition parties that have been in power earlier, whether it is a Congress, whether it is a Samajwadi Party in UP, their version of secularism often became one in which it was not as if they were giving the Muslims better education or better, cleaner living conditions or, better health facilities. It became, in a distorted and perverted version, the fact that I will overlook or I will forgive or turn a blind eye to your fundamentalist or your bigot or your criminal. In UP, for instance, this is a story you hear all the time that when the Samajwadi Party was in power and somebody was caught at the local thana who was a Muslim or a Yadav, Samajwadi Party leader, a call would be made by the leader to the police to let them off. So now again, there may be fiction in this, but there is also truth in it. And so there is a sort of reaction to the kind of secularism that was practiced by the secular parties, which becomes part of the support that the BJP manages to draw in the Hindutva constituency, and the fact that its outright anti-Muslim or anti-minority stance does not seem to be yet provoking enough Hindus to say that, that this is not what I signed up for.
And Vandita, finally, based on everything we have talked about, from what voters want, the ruling party's rhetoric, to the state of the opposition, what do you think it will finally come down to?
For all the, there have been many, many analysts and people who have said that this is not a Modi election, that, they make a distinction between 2014 and 19 and now this one. And their argument is that 2014, certainly he was the new politician on the block, at least at the center. And then in 2019, because of Pulwama, Balakot, he was riding on the crest of a, nationalistic wave. And that this election, it's not the overriding and overpowering Modi factor. It is a host of local issues that are coming up. I would say that whether the BJP wins or it loses, at the end of the day, this is a Modi election again.
You were listening to Three Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Vijay Doiphode and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.